Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be finishing up the Culbertson House chandelier this week. Just wanted to, before we jumped into the build part, give out our thoughts and prayers and love to all of those who have lost homes and loved ones in the fires in LA this week. We're only about an hour and a half from LA. I was actually supposed to go to the Gamble House this last weekend to take a tour, and they shut it down because of the fires and evacuations and all of that. Right now it's safe. But there have been just tens of thousands of homes lost, hundreds of thousands of people displaced, and numerous people have lost their lives. So we just want to give our thoughts and prayers out to all of them. Just a tragic situation. There have been some really beautiful historic homes lost also. The Rand McNally house, well, not the Rand McNally, the McNally house in Altadena, which was from McNally, from the Rand McNally maps. If you remember back in school, the big maps that they had on the chalkboards were Rand McNally. That house was built in the late 1900s. I'm sorry, the late 1800s, and is just a beautiful home. I got to do some work on it as a part of the TV show Restored with my buddy Brett Waterman, and seeing the house in person, it was just amazing, and it is just razed to the ground. There's nothing left. So hopefully, our first responders and firefighters can get this under control and get the help that they need. Brave men and women out there doing their best to get this under control. So hopefully they can do that. Like I said, our thoughts and prayers go out to them, and our love. I spent a long time, 28 and a half years in law enforcement, working with firefighters, and I know how selfless they are, and they're doing everything they can to get this under control. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers, and pray that they make it home safe to their families at the end of all of this. So having said all that, we're going to get into finishing up the Culbertson chandelier. So if you saw the video last week, we got all the pieces put together. So this week we're going to be assembling the light, getting all the rafters in, getting the roof pieces in, getting all of the ebony in, and that'll take us through till we get this all put together and ready to ship. We got the ceiling plate that goes up on the ceiling done, and everything's ready to be sent to the vendor. So let's jump out there and get into it. All right, let's go. So the first thing we're going to do here is fix up where I kind of messed up. These posts, this hole specifically in the post, would have been much easier to drill when the post was still square before the bevels were cut into it. But as always, I got into a rush and didn't think about it, and the pieces were already cut. So to be able to drill these holes, I created this jig here that'll hold the piece. So there's a stop at the one end, and then on the sides there's a 60-degree bevel on one side, a 30-degree bevel on the other. That piece there was one of my test pieces, so it was too short. That's why I pulled that back out. But that allowed me to get the pieces in the position they need for the hangers at the tops of those lights. So now we're going to come in and do the tenons on the end of the rails. And if you're eagle-eyed, you probably see that it's already got the tenons. I cut them all and then realized I didn't film it, so stuck them back in just so that you could see the process of doing the tenons on the multi-router. Got a jig set up for them, so the ends go up against a stop and all of the tenons are the exact same length. So I got those all done. Then we're going to go ahead and pull that out. And I made these custom little clamp holders there that you see that hold down the odd shape of the post. So couldn't just use a standard piece of square wood because it would want to shoot the post out. So I used the CNC to make these little custom clamping cauls that'll clamp that odd shape of the post. And then here I'm putting in the pocket in the end post for the glass. That's what the glass will go into. And then you'll see here I catch myself after I'm messing around with this. Why doesn't the cauls work? Huh, that's weird. Oh, yeah, maybe it's because your dumb ass has the post set wrong. Oh, now, look, they fit. So there's the cauls back on there again, lining up the post. I'm going to go ahead and clamp those down. get the other piece taken care of, get that pocket done for the glass, wrap that all out. So now we have that shape in there, got an area that the glass is going to go into when it comes in the side of each side of that hexagon. And you'll see because of the router bit, there's a little rounded over portion, and then the multi-router only goes a certain length, so at the two ends there's just a little bit of a lip left there. So I'm going to go ahead and take the chisel, square those up, take out that little bit of extra material, and then square up those corners where the curve of the router bit is. So that I'll just get that all squared up and get a nice 90 degree so that when the rails are put into it, there's a nice match up there where the glass is going to go. So we'll get those all set, get that all cleaned up. And then once I know that everything is where I want it to be on this one that I kind of use as a test piece, you see it's all squared up now. A little bit of cleanup to do there, but not a big deal because the rail will be there. But then back, and now we're going to put in the mortises for the tenons in the rails. I'm sorry, in the post. So here we're going to go ahead and we make those little mortises. I always keep one test piece that's correct. So I have one from a light that was done, and that's what I use to set up my tools. So then it's just a matter of little minor adjustments to get everything you need. So there you can see the rail slid into it. The glass pocket lines up nice, slid in there nice and tight. So now we're going to come back, and now we're going to do the mortise in the top portion. So that's all clamped down. We get the mortise in the top, and then we'll check it with the top rail to do the same thing. Make sure that everything lines up, everything has the right spacing, the right gap. Can get to that hole above it. There you can see the portion where the rafter and the roof will go. So that all matches up, then we'll go and make the rest of them. Now what we've got to do is put our ebony holes in, the little mortises for all of our ebony plugs. So there's quite a bit of those. There's 4 on each post. I'm sorry, 8 on each post, 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom. So there's 4 1/4 inch holes, 2 1/4 inch at the top, 2 1/4 inch in the bottom, and then an 1/8 inch top and bottom. So each of those was in, and then we come over and we're going to round everything over. So everything in this light gets a 16th inch round over on it. So that's what I'm doing here. All of the portions of the rails, the post, everything's going to get that 16th inch round over. So these are the top rails here. So going through the router bit there, instead of having a bearing on it, it actually has a little brass template at the top of the bearing. Sometimes when you're routing smaller stuff that only has like an 1/8 inch of meat, there's not enough at the top of the bearing, or I'm sorry, of the bit to be able to route your stuff, because if there's a bearing on it, there's a gap under the bearing, and your portion of the thin material, like where those glass pockets are, will go under the bearing and get eaten up. So sometimes these little bearingless bits here that have just the edge, brass edge for the bit, the workpiece to ride on, work out much better. So that's what that's for. It's also for sometimes if you have a slot in a portion that you need to make a round over in, like some of the hanging bars that have leather straps, the opening for that leather strap to pass through is only a 1/4 inch, and either you have to have a bit with a micro bearing on it, or a bit like this that just runs along the material, allows you to get into those tight places and get your round over without a big deal being made. So you just saw we got the rafters for the roof pieces, and now we're on to the posts. So we're going to get all the posts rounded over, top and bottom, and then the 2 outside edges. The inside edges, because of the shape and the bevel on them, you can't get with a router bit, so those just have to be sanded by hand and rounded over by hand. But that's not a big deal. You get all the majority of the stuff with 90-degree angles here, and then just touch up those other parts by hand. So here you can see I'm mocking up the roof piece with the rafters just to make sure that everything lines up and fits. dry fitting it here. I want to make sure that I've got everything right before I get everything into clamps with glue and get stuck in a place where I'm like, something's wrong. Which is also a good thing I did this, because when I went to put into the rafter pieces, I found that I had made a mistake with the rafters, and when I had flipped them, one of the rabbets or mortises for the roof piece to sit into was actually a little bit longer than the one on the other side. So by dry fitting it, I was able to figure out that there was a mistake before I started getting glue on stuff. So here again, I made up some custom clamping calls to get that piece put together. So here what I'm going to do is, instead of trying to glue everything of the hexagon up at one time with a lot of pieces, I'm going to go ahead and glue it up into 3 separate assemblies. So then when it comes time to put the hexagon together, there's only the 3 sections to glue up together, and it's going to be much easier to put together than trying to glue and clamp up 6 individual sides with everything going together. So anytime you can try and minimize the number of pieces you're trying to glue up at one time, because you're glue drying too quick unless you have a real glue with a long open time, it can get to be an issue. So glue up subsections or sub-assemblies, get those dry, let them dry. Then you can clean them up with a chisel if there's any glue that needs to be cleaned up. Then take your sub-assemblies and put together your sub-assemblies into your final piece. That's going to save you a lot of headaches. Sometimes big glue ups with a lot of pieces can be complicated and can kind of be a pain. So making up your sub-assemblies first and then gluing it up can save you a lot of time and heartache. So here we're just getting the glue into the mortises and tenons, getting everything together. See, tapping it in. I got those tenons so they're just snug. And then here we are. I'm lining up the pockets for the glass so that everything lines up, so when the glass goes in, the portions of the post and the portions on the rails all line up. So we got those. I put these pieces of MDF in here to protect the wood from the clamps. I think I said it before, with mahogany, it's a little bit of softer wood. So if you just put the clamps on and crank them down, it'll leave some lines in your pieces. So if you use some MDF, little blanks there, or something that you put in there to keep from damaging your piece, it'll save you some heartache again from having to sand and clean everything up after you take it out of the clamps. I mean, you're going to have stuff that you need to touch up, but if you can minimize that work, it helps quite a bit. So here I'm putting together the next one. This is the second sub-assembly. Of course, got it up out of the camera a little bit for you where you can't see it, but again, tapping everything together, making sure all those glass pockets line up and everything's good. You can see those holes in the top there that we drilled over on the jig. Got our mortises in there. Everything's coming together nicely. So again, get another set of clamps. Get our little MDF clamping protectors. Put those in there and put our piece in. Clamp it down, make sure everything's lined up and snug. Stand that up and we'll put together our third sub-assembly. Here we go with that. Line them up, make sure everything matches up, that those are the pieces we want. Get the glue in the mortises. Get the glue on the tenons. And put those together. So again, it was a little crooked when I was tapping that one in, but we got it in. Just had to line it up right. So here's our top rail. Get the top rail in, get everything lined up. Get our glue in the mortises on this post. On the tenon. And then we'll go ahead and put this one together as well. Tappy tappy. Got everything lined up. You can see there, lining up our rail. We want that to be flush, so when the glass goes in, everything's nice and flush. Flip it over and do the same thing. I went a little too far with that one. Oh, then a little too far again, so got it all lined up now. You can see with my finger there, I'm feeling to make sure that it's smooth across there. Your finger can feel about 5/1000ths of an inch, so if you can feel a little bit of a difference there, you'll be able to feel it. And if you're under 5/1000ths of an inch, no one's going to see it or ever know. So here we go, get our third set of clamps. And put this in there, and we have our 3 sub-assemblies all glued up and ready to go. Then we'll sit and let those dry. And there you have it. 3 of our 6 sides. Everything's all glued up, just making sure that everything's tight with the clamps and I haven't introduced a twist. So here's our rafters. So this is where I was showing. You can see the line I drew here. So that line's coming across the inside of the arc. And then on this side, you can see the line I drew is on the outside of that little arc. So for whatever reason, when I had done the indexing pins on the CNC and flipped my piece, somewhere in the drawing I messed up and one end of the light was a little bit further out than the other. So I went back, recut those on the CNC, glued up the roof piece with one end of each rafter on, made sure that just fit, and getting some glue in those mortises, a little glue on the back piece here, and then we're going to tap that rafter into place. So those are the little pieces where the roof piece is going to go into the posts. So we tap this in nice and tight, and everything is where it should be. So I'm just going to use a clamp here. Try and clamp that up to the back post. Trying a couple of different things. I probably should have made some little clamping calls for this as well, because this ends up going bad and it falls off because that's a pretty thin edge of the roof that I'm trying to balance that on. But for right now, it's holding it up against there. You can see that center piece that I have the clamps on with the circle cut in the middle. Again, I CNC'd those out to drop down in the middle because I wanted to make sure that when I did these pieces and another piece, there it goes. When I did these pieces, that I wasn't pulling the hexagon out of its proper shape. So I made that piece to drop down in the center to ensure that the hexagon held its shape as I went around. I also used that when I was putting in the ebony so that I could make sure that it wasn't going to pull it off. And here I'm trying to use these clamps when it pivots there on the end. So dumb idea. I should have just taken the time to make some clamping calls, which next time I'll do. So live and learn. Some little rookie moves the first time I was making this light. So again, hoping that'll hold it, but I think this one ends up popping off too, but it is what it is. It holds it in place. Really, when I tap in the next rafter, that rafter, because of the mortise in the rafter, the roof butts up against it and it pulls it in tight. So really nothing to worry about there. So here we are, again, a little glue. Get our glue into our mortises, all of our places that are going to make contact. Put a little bit along the back of that roof piece. And here again, tap that into place. So everything all lined up where it should be. I'm going to go ahead and try and magically clamp this one as well and hope that the clamp holds. And we're just working our way around. Try and get all 6 sides of this hexagon done. Yeah, I think you can already see where this is going to go drastically wrong here in a minute, and there's going to be clamps falling all over the place. But like I said, next time I'll make some clamping calls that'll go across there that will give me a flat surface to clamp to. But in the meantime, live and learn. So we've got our glue on the rafter there. I've got a little bit already on the back of the roof piece. So we line our rafter up, go ahead and tap that in until it bottoms out. Yeah, there you go. There go our clamps. So, but as I look over, I can see that there's no gap between the roof and the, I was like, oh, well, maybe if the part that pivots is on the back, maybe it'll work better. But that is what it is. Again, live and learn. Make mistakes and you learn from them. That's how woodworking goes. You'll keep making mistakes, and then as you go, you'll figure stuff out, and you'll figure out ways to work around different things. So here we go. Next one. So I think we are around to our last piece. So this roof piece is going to go in, and then we're going to tap in our last rafter. So the way we came around here, I had pre-glued a rafter to one end of each of the roof pieces, worked our way around, and then when we get to the end here, I left that one off because we'll go ahead and we'll put this roof piece in, put it in on the top left there where you see that, get that into there, get the little glue on the back of the roof piece here where it goes against the top rail. We get that into place, get it snugged in. And there's going to be a little gap right there. You can see where the rafter slides in. So we put that rafter there, make sure that it's going to fit, and we tap it home. So we know everything's good now. Got my big body right in the way where you can't see what I'm doing. That one's set up and the glue was pretty much set up, so went ahead and pulled that clamp out. So right there, just tapping in that last part, tap the rafter in, and we are good to go. So there we are with the sample one and mine. So now we're on to the ceiling piece. So the part that goes up on the ceiling has a bevel that goes all the way around it. So I made this jig here that goes ahead and slides on top of my table saw fence. Put some of those dovetail clamps in it to hold the piece. My predecessor that made these before would screw through the back, but I happen to have those dovetail clamps. The second part of this bevel is 45 degrees, so I put a bit in the router table there. It's a 90-degree V-bit, but that means 45 degrees on each side. So that gives me my 45 degrees that I need. And then after having cut the initial bevel, I just come back through and run that through. That's going to get rid of the waste piece there and going to create the shape that I need on this ceiling plate. So I'll hold this up in a second. You'll be able to see the shape that's in this. So there you go. Got a little bit of an area to clean up. I just got to move the fence a little bit. So here's what it looks like. Here I'm spraying it, getting it finished. This is before the ebony's gone into it. So we're spraying it with matte lacquer. So there you can see the shape after it's all cleaned up and sanded. Little double bevel. So we come back. Here's our light, and again, finishing the light, getting it all finished. And of course, the lacquer looks shiny because it's wet, but when it dries, it's a matte finish. Kind of gives you that hand rubbed look. It's not overly glossy. When it's all done, if there's anything, I hand rub it out with some 4/0 steel wool and some wax to give it a nice finish. So here's the top portion after I flipped it over. So we've got this one all sprayed, ready to go. Just got to let it dry, and then we'll be putting in the ebony plugs. And again, the ebony plugs are something that I have a video on the page for. So if you have any questions about it, you can go to that video and watch how I make the ebony plugs. So again, here you can see those little portions on the inside of the fixture. And again, that's so as I'm tapping in these plugs, I'm not tapping the light out of shape. I'm not going to knock loose the rails by pounding on it and having it come loose from the rails and have to re-glue stuff up. So those little things in the middle there were really a big help in making sure everything stayed the shape it's supposed to stay. So here we are getting all our ebony plugs in. I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 legs, 6 legs, so 48 ebony plugs for the light, and then there were 6 for the ceiling plate. So we've got 48 here that we had to make. There were 24 of the 1/4 inch and 24 of the 1/8 inch plugs. So we got those all done, get them through one side at a time. There you can really see a good example of the rafters and the underside of the roof there and how it fits into those rafters. At first, my interior piece that I have on the inside there was a little big, so I had taken it over to the edge sander, and I sanded off a little much on a couple of sides, so it's not super tight, but it fits in there and holds in place. And when I push down on the fixture, it holds it in place and makes sure that there's no give or flex to it that's going to damage the light. So that mat that I'm using there, that rubber mat that's underneath it, that's a mat from Rockler that I got that you can use as a sanding mat. You can also go to like a dollar store and get a yoga mat. That's basically what that is. It's just a little bit thinner than a yoga mat. But we were recently at a dollar store and they had yoga mats that are that exact same size, just a little bit thicker, but they were like $3. I think that was 20 something bucks at Rockler. So you can find the same thing, a nice soft mat to do things on, or glue things up on, whatever the case may be. At a dollar store, just use a yoga mat and it'll give you the exact same ability to have something soft under your project as you're working on it. So here we are finishing up the last few pegs. We'll get those in. And away we go. There you go, pull those pieces out and it's all good. So here you see me taking that 4/0 steel wool and just kind of cleaning things up. There was a little bit of overspray there, so when I felt it I could tell that it was a little rough. So I just took some 4/0 steel wool and cleaned up those rough spots. Hey everyone, so here we are, got everything together. You got to watch the process of assembling it, getting the ebony in, getting all our pieces together. I hope you enjoyed the video. This one's a little more complex of a piece because of the whole hexagon thing and making sure that you got all your angles right. But as long as you've cut those angles right, everything comes together. It was a fun project. This is, like I said, my first time building this one. The one that I've showed you in the intro when we were first putting everything together, that one was built by the prior carpenter. So this is my first time building it. So it was a good learning experience for me. It was a lot of fun to build. It came out really well. I'm really happy with it. Here you see here's the ceiling piece. So we got our ceiling piece all done as well. Got the ebony in it. It's all ready for the hooks, all ready to be shipped off. So, like I said, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you enjoyed what we did this week, putting this together. I know it took 2 videos, but I thought it was a little better breaking it up that way so that we could kind of spread out the content and what we were doing. Again, if you like what you see, please like, subscribe, hit that notification button to get the notifications when the new videos come out. Please leave me a comment. Let me know if you like the content we're putting out, if there's questions that you have about it, if there's something else that you'd like to see or something else that you'd like to see us go more into detail on. Uh, when it comes to the ebony plugs, I'll put a link to the video for how I make those. I know in this video and in a couple of the others, I haven't gone into the making of the plugs, but I have a dedicated video on our page that goes over how I make the plugs, how I polish them, do the bevels on them so that they fit into the hole and then get tapped in and snug up as they're tapped in. So watch that video, and you'll see that part of how we do that. So let me know if you need anything else. Again, we really appreciate you. It helps us out when you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. We like putting out the content. I'm having a good time. This is a lot of fun, especially with some of the comments I'm getting and some of the questions that I'm getting. I like to be able to help others on their journeys as well. It's been a long journey for me. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and there have been a lot of people that have helped me along the way. And if I can pass that on and help you in any way, I'd love to do it. So we'll see you in the next one.